Back in 2016, my husband and I decided to go on a camping trip in eastern Pennsylvania. We were both pretty broke at the time, so we weren't looking for one of those nice campgrounds with showers and paved spots. We wanted something primitive. We found an area where camping was free, basically just undeveloped state forest land. There was barely a road, no cell service, and according to the map, we were miles from the nearest tiny town. We were looking for total isolation, and we definitely found it, but we weren't as alone as we thought. On the way in, driving down this muddy, rutted-out gravel trail, we passed two people who, looking back, were huge red flags. I don't know for sure if they were connected to what happened later, but they set the tone for the whole trip. The first was a woman standing next to a pickup truck pulled off to the side of the narrow road. She had the hood popped open. Usually, my husband is the type of guy who will stop and help anyone. He's got jumper cables and tools in his trunk, and he's pretty handy. But as we got closer, he just slowed down a little, looked at her, and then kept driving. I asked him why he didn't stop. He said something about her that just felt off. He told me, when people are stranded out here, they look relieved when they see another car. They wave their arms, they try to flag you down. She didn't do any of that. She just stood there staring at us like she knew we were going to stop. I hadn't noticed that detail, honestly. I just saw a woman in trouble, but I trusted his gut. We kept driving for another 20 minutes until we found a clearing that looked decent. It had been raining a lot that week, so everything was soaked. The ground was basically just mud and wet leaves, but we found a slightly higher patch of ground to pitch the tent. While we were setting up, trying to get a fire going with damp wood for hot dogs, we had our second weird encounter. A beat-up blue sedan drove past us slowly. It was weird because the road didn't really go anywhere except deeper into the woods. About 10 minutes later, the same car drove back the other way. The driver, a middle-aged guy with a thick beard, was staring right at us as he passed. He didn't wave or nod. He just watched us until he went around a bend. 15 minutes after that, he passed again, going back into the woods. My husband was getting uneasy. He pointed out that the guy had no camping gear in his car. He was just driving back and forth on a dead-end dirt road. We briefly debated packing up right then. The vibes were bad. But we had already driven around for 2 hours trying to find a dryish spot, and the mud on the main track was getting worse. We figured if we moved, we'd just leave tire tracks right to our new spot anyway. So we rationalized it. Maybe he was just a local looking for a spot to hunt, or maybe he was just weird. He didn't come back a fourth time. We ate our hot dogs, drank some water, and goofed off until it got dark. The woods get incredibly dark when there's no light pollution. We crawled into the tent around 10, and despite the earlier weirdness, we fell asleep pretty fast. Sometime around 3 a.m., I was jolted awake by the loudest sound I have ever heard in the woods. I can't even describe it perfectly. It didn't sound like an animal. It sounded mechanical. My husband later described it as a chain gun revving up, like that metallic grinding sound before it actually fires. Another way he described it was like someone dragging a metal shovel over gravel, but amplified through a massive loudspeaker. It was aggressive, unnatural, and terrifyingly loud. My husband shot straight up in his sleeping bag. He scrambled to the little mesh window of the tent and peered out. It was dead silent outside now, just the usual crickets. "What was that?" I said. I was shaking. He stayed quiet for a second, still looking out. Then he lay back down, but he didn't relax. "It was probably just some machinery way off in the distance," he told me back. "Sound carries weird out here. Go back to sleep." I wanted to believe him, so I tried to close my eyes. But he didn't go back to sleep. I could feel him lying perfectly still next to me, rigid, listening. Every little noise outside suddenly sounded like footsteps. A twig snapping sounded like a boot. Wind rustling the wet leaves sounded like someone brushing against the tent. After about 20 minutes of just lying there in the dark, terrified, he suddenly sat up. "Get dressed," he said. His voice wasn't a whisper anymore, but it was low and serious. "We're leaving, now." I didn't argue. I pulled my jeans on over my pajama pants. Before he unzipped the tent door, he reached into his duffel bag and pulled out a machete we had bought specifically for this trip. It was still in the plastic retail packaging. He ripped the plastic off as quietly as he could. That scared me more than anything else, seeing that he felt he needed it right that second. "Stay close to me, we are just throwing everything in the trunk. Don't bother folding anything," he said. We burst out of the tent. The moon was bright enough that we could see our campsite pretty clearly. No one was there. We worked fast, adrenaline pumping, throwing the sleeping bags and the tent into the back of his car in a disorganized pile. I was scanning the tree line the whole time, expecting to see that bearded man just standing there watching us. Just as we were about to jump in the car, I saw it. Right next to our fire pit, which was just cold gray ash now, there was a soda can. It was standing perfectly upright. We didn't drink soda. We hadn't brought any can with us at all. And it definitely wasn't there when we went to sleep. Someone had been standing right outside our thin nylon tent while we slept. We jumped in the car and locked the doors. My husband jammed the keys in the ignition, and that's when he told me the truth. "That noise wasn't miles away," he said as we sped down the muddy track, sliding around the corners. "It sounded like it was 50 feet down the road. I just didn't want you to panic while we were stuck in the tent." He was constantly checking the rearview mirror, afraid we were being followed. He also told me he was half expecting the car not to start. He thought maybe the reason they hadn't attacked us yet was that they had siphoned our gas to strand us there. Luckily, we had a hybrid. Even if they had drained the tank, we had enough electric battery to get a few miles down the road to civilization. We nervously joked later that it would make a great commercial. Number of brutal murders avoided by driving a hybrid too. We didn't see the blue car or the broken down truck on the way out. We drove until we hit a main highway and found a cheap motel with bright lights in the parking lot. I don't know what that noise was. I don't know if it was the man in the sedan trying to scare us out of the tent or something else entirely. But I know someone was close enough to hear us breathing while we slept, and they left that soda can to let us know. We still go camping, but we stick to state parks with rangers and plenty of other people around. I spent my freshman year's winter break visiting my cousins up in North Dakota. If you've never been there in winter, you don't understand how desolate it gets. It's just miles of flat, open snow and freezing wind that cuts right through you. One night, we were at their friend's house with some other girls. It got late, around 3 a.m., and I was exhausted. I didn't want to sleep on a basement floor, so I decided to just walk back to my cousin's place. It wasn't a huge town. The houses were spread out with patches of woods and open fields between them. The cold air hit me hard when I stepped outside. The moon was out, reflecting off the snow, so it was surprisingly bright. I took the usual path, which cut straight behind the friend's house, through a wooded area, and then across a large open field to my cousin's neighborhood. I was shuffling through the deep snow, head down against the wind, just trying to get home fast. I happened to look up, and to my left, about 10 o'clock from where I was standing, maybe 75 yards away, near the edge of the trees, there was another figure walking in the opposite direction. I saw him a split second before he saw me. When he noticed me, he jerked his shoulders up, obviously startled. I laughed out loud. It was just a nervous reaction because he scared me. I gave a little wave like, "Oops, sorry, you startled me." He didn't wave back. He just stopped dead in his tracks and stared at me. I stopped too, thinking he might say something. That's when I realized he was wearing a full-face ski mask. It wasn't that weird because it was freezing out, but he was huge, really tall. We just stood there for what felt like forever, two strangers in the middle of nowhere at 3 a.m. A massive shock went through my heart, and it wasn't from the cold. My gut told me I needed to leave, right now. I turned away from him and started walking fast toward the path. I glanced back over my shoulder. He wasn't standing there anymore. He was running, straight at me. Pure adrenaline kicked in. I knew if I stayed in the open field, he'd catch me easily. I made a split-second decision and bolted straight into the thicker part of the woods, hoping I could lose him in the trees. The snow was deeper in there, and I kept tripping over roots I couldn't see. I could hear him crunching through the snow behind me, heavy footsteps getting closer. I pushed harder, my lungs burning. Suddenly, up ahead in a small clearing, I saw two more figures standing perfectly still. They were also wearing ski masks. I almost stopped, thinking maybe they could help, but then they both raised their hands slowly and waved at me in perfect unison. It was the creepiest thing I'd ever seen. They weren't friendly waves, it felt like a trap. I didn't follow the path toward them. I veered hard to the right, plunging deeper into the totally untouched woods where it was pitch black. I ran until I couldn't breathe anymore, until my legs gave out and I collapsed in the snow. I listened. Silence. No crunching footsteps. No heavy breathing. I had lost them, but I was completely lost myself. I wandered for probably an hour, freezing to death, until I saw a dim yellow light through the trees. It was a small, rundown cabin. I didn't care who was in there. I was going to freeze if I didn't get inside. I pounded on the door, shivering violently. After a minute, an elderly woman opened it. She looked confused but kind. I quickly explained that I got turned around walking home and was freezing. She ushered me in immediately, gave me a blanket, and made me some hot tea. She was incredibly sweet, exactly the kind of grandma figure you'd want to find. She told me it was too dangerous to walk back now in the dark, but I could sleep on her couch. "My son will be here first thing in the morning," she said. "He has a truck. He can drive you to your cousin's." I was so relieved, I almost cried. I slept heavily, exhausted from the terror. I woke up to the smell of coffee and the sound of a heavy door closing. "Good morning, dear," the old woman said from the kitchen. "My son just got here." I sat up, rubbing my eyes, and looked toward the door. A man was standing there, stomping snow off his massive boots. He was huge. He was wearing the same dark jacket and pants as the man from the field. He looked up at me, and my blood ran cold. He wasn't wearing the ski mask anymore. He was holding it in his hand. It was him, the same guy who chased me. He didn't look surprised to see me. He just stared, a weird half smile on his face. "Ready for that ride?" he asked. His voice was deep and flat. I think I know where I am now," I stammered, standing up and grabbing my coat. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely zip it. "It looks way clearer in the daylight. I'll just walk." "Thanks so much for everything." I didn't wait for them to argue. I pushed past him, trying not to touch him, and burst out the door. I practically ran the entire way back to my cousin's house in the daylight. I haven't been back to North Dakota since. I remember when I was 18, just old enough to be considered an adult in our local scout group. It was basically like Boy Scouts, but we called it the Youth Rangers or something similar in our area. The big rite of passage for us was the 3-feather challenge. It was supposed to build character, teach survival skills, that kind of thing. First day, no food at all, just water. You hung around camp, but your stomach growled nonstop. Second day, no speaking. You communicated with gestures, which was awkward during group activities. The third was the tough one, a full day and night alone in the woods, with only a pocket knife and a tarp for shelter. The rule was, stay unseen by any human, then sneak back to camp at dawn without the sentries spotting you. Report to the campmaster, and you'd earn your feathers. I'd breezed through the first 2 days. Not eating wasn't fun, but I managed. The silent day was weird. I kept catching myself about to talk. But the third day, I was ready. I grabbed my knife and tarp, waved goodbye to the group, and headed out from camp. Our woods were in a state park up in the northeast, dense with pines and oaks, trails that faded into nothing if you went far enough. I walked for hours, maybe 5 or 6 miles, pushing into the overgrown sections where thorns scratched my arms and the ground was uneven with roots. I wanted the remotest spot possible, no chance of hikers or anyone stumbling on me. Found a small clearing surrounded by thick brush, about as wild as it got without being totally lost. I set up my tarp between 2 trees, like a lean-to, and sharpened a stick with my knife just to pass the time. The day dragged. I hiked around a bit, careful not to leave the area, watched some birds, and thought about life. As the sun set, it got spooky. The wood's noise changed, wind rustling leaves, distant owls hooting, branches cracking like something was out there. But nothing happened. I curled up under the tarp, knife in hand, and dozed off in fits. Woke up a few times to rustling, but it was probably deer or raccoons. No big deal. Almost dawn, sky turning gray, I figured I'd pack up soon and sneak back. But I was sweaty and dirty from the day before, and there was a lake nearby, I'd seen it on the map, maybe a quarter mile away. Thought a quick swim would wake me up, wash off before the hike back. No one around that early, right? I stripped down, left my clothes by the tarp, and walked barefoot toward the water. The ground was cold, wet with dew, and sticks poked my feet. Got close to the lake edge, pushing through reeds, and that's when I saw them. A group of guys, 4 or 5, out on the bank with fishing poles. Early morning anglers, probably locals. They were quiet, casting lines, and didn't notice me. Damn, I thought. Can't let them see me, breaks the rule. So I turned back, careful not to make noise, heading to my spot to grab clothes and leave. That's when it happened. One step, the ground felt soft, like moss, but then it gave way. No warning, just a crunch, and I dropped. Sank up to my armpits in this thick, slimy mess. It was cold and warm at the same time, chunks floating around me. And the smell, oh God, the smell hit like a punch. Rotten meat, blood, shit, all mixed and fermented. I gagged instantly, bile rising in my throat. Tried to pull myself up, but my hands sank into it, grabbing fistfuls of what felt like organs, slippery and stringy. I screamed. Couldn't help it, pure panic. It was a pit, maybe dug by poachers. I'd heard stories from rangers, guys illegally hunting deer, dumping guts in hidden spots to hide evidence. This one must have been there for weeks, rotting in the heat, maggots probably crawling in it. I was covered, face, hair, everything. Blood and offal stuck to my skin, dripping. I clawed at the edges, dirt crumbling, and finally hauled myself out on my belly, weeping from the stench and shock. Had to get clean. The lake was the only thing on my mind. I staggered up, naked and coated in that filth, and ran toward the water. Didn't think about the fishermen, just needed to wash it off. My feet slapped the ground, screaming the whole time, tears mixing with the rot on my face. From their side, I can only imagine. They're out there, peaceful dawn fishing, when this ungodly yell echoes from the woods. They drop rods, run over to check. Maybe someone's hurt, an accident. Bushes part, and out crawls this thing. A kid-shaped monster, plastered in red-black gore, bits hanging off, eyes wild. It's shrieking, sobbing, and then charges right at them. One of them panicked, grabbed a hunting rifle from the ground, and fired. The shot whizzed right past me, hitting the dirt near my feet. I screamed louder and dove straight into the lake, heart pounding so hard I thought it would burst. When they saw me splashing, they realized it was just some terrified kid. The guy with the rifle lowered it, shouting apologies. They stood there stunned, and one called out, "Hey, you okay, kid?" Another came closer, face pale, seeing I was human and not whatever horror they thought. I explained between gasps. Scout challenge, fell in a gut pit. They helped me out, lent a shirt, and called the Rangers. Failed the challenge, obviously. Got seen big time. But the campmaster let it slide after hearing. Still, that smell haunted me for days. Showered 3 times, but it lingered in my nose. Never went back to those woods. Poachers got busted later, and the pit was filled in. But man, that morning felt like hell on earth.